everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim, and we talk about horror movies on this show. Sometimes from the past, sometimes from the present.
Never from the future.
Never from the future. Unless the technology happens, Tim, and we can do that, then by all means I will happily do movies from the future.
All right.
But I won't skip movies in a franchise, though. I'm not skipping to, like, Halloween 22 before I've seen 21. That's not happening.
You're not a dirty, filthy skipper.
Exactly, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about horror movies, and if you've watched the last two videos, and you might not have, this might be the first video you've ever seen of us. If so, I apologise. This is probably going to be a train wreck. But if this is the first one, we recorded 3 movies in a row because we'd had some technical issues last week, so we had to catch up. We had 2 to record anyway, so we've done 3 in a row. This is the third one of the night. It's a movie that neither of us are particularly fond of. So if we get a little bit giggly, if we get a little bit weird, it's also late, so you have been warned. So what are we doing? Well, see, if you pay attention to the channel, you've looked at some of the other stuff we've been doing recently. We recently did Texas Chainsaw 1 and 2, and we did the first Chucky movie, Child's Play.
Fun. What great franchises.
We did those because they've both got new movies coming out in October, so we wanted to make sure we'd done all the previous movies in the franchises on the run-up to the new one coming out in October.
Mm-hmm.
So over the next few months, we'll do Texas Chainsaw 3 through, the remakes and then the newer movies from 2013. We'll do all the Child's Play and Chucky movies on the run-up to the new one coming out. But there's one other franchise movie, Tim, coming out in October. Do we also have to work our way through the entire series for it releasing in October? Yes, we do. We take the good and the bad on this show. On 1.21 gigawatts, we have the luxury of saying, you know what? None of us want to see Transformers The Last Night. None of us are going to see it. We're not going to review it. With Streams After Midnight...
How do I get that gig?
With Streams After Midnight, we made a choice, we made an oath at the start of this show to review movies, even ones that looked like garbage. Because when you're sticking to just the horror genre, you have to take the bad with the good. Yeah. And
if we go a little bit behind the scenes, we did take a blood oath. We basically made little cuts in our butts and we pressed our butts together, and or at least I did.
That sounds like there's 2 oaths going on there. One blood, one something else.
I took a butt oath.
So I don't know why I'm drawing this reveal out so much, because if you clicked on the video, it's in the title. You know what movie we're going to talk about. Yeah. So we are going to work our way through the Saw franchise over the next few months, spread out as much as we can, because we're not
spread out like a nice piece of toast.
That wasn't even in the last review. That's a reference. That's a reference to the first movie we did tonight. Jesus Christ, huh?
It's not a reference. It's an Easter egg. People that have watched every video will appreciate it.
Oh my god, he's setting up jokes in one video and then paying them off like 3 later. It pays to be a regular viewer of the channel. That's all I'm saying. Tim's doing these weird setups. They're glorious. So we're going to work our way through the Saw franchise. This, of course, is going to be the first Saw movie, which we've seen before. For the record, I have seen the first 6 before. I've never seen the 7th. Obviously, the 8th one's coming out this October. It's called Jigsaw, so it's kind of a semi-reboot, I think. I'm not sure. But Jigsaw's coming out in October, so we're doing Saw 1 through 7 until then.
Jesus Christ.
Again, spread out. Saw 2 is not next. We'll be, kind of like Texas Chainsaw and Chucky, we'll be sort of interlinking them and doing other things in between and keeping it varied, but...
Keeping our sanity sane.
Keeping our sanity. But, so I'm just going to give you a spoiler warning just now. I feel like there's no point in doing a spoiler-free section of Saw. Yeah. So, full spoilers, Saw came out in 2004, directed by James Wan, of all people, which... do you know what? It really impresses me how far he's come. Yeah. Because I love Insidious. I love Conjuring. They're great movies.
And not even just that they're great movies, but I like the direction in them as well, which is crazy because I hate the direction in this.
This is not his worst movie. His worst movie was the puppet movie called Death Sentence. What do you call it?
Dead Silence.
Was it Dead Silence? Yeah. That movie was absolute. And I watched that after I saw Insidious and Conjuring, which we've done before, by the way. All the Insidious and Conjurings we've reviewed on streams. I'll make sure there's a link to some of them somewhere in the corner. But like we like those movies a lot.
Yeah.
And I went, and it was after Insidious and Conjuring. I went, oh, I want to go back. What else has he done other than Saw? Which I knew he'd done Saw. And I was like, oh, Dead Silence. I want to watch this. It was on Netflix at the time. I thought, I'm going to watch it. And I hated it with a fiery passion. So that's worse than this. I don't think Saw is terrible. I want us to make that clear. If you're a fan of Saw and you're pissed at us already for being kind of dismissive, I don't hate Saw. I think there's some good ideas in Saw.
I'll go with that. I'll say I would say that I do hate it, but there are there is stuff that I do like, and I think would have been interesting, maybe if it was handled a little differently.
So what is Saw about? Once upon a time, it got really convoluted later, but I'm going to have so much fun trying to describe what Saw 4 is about when we get to it.
Jesus. Yeah.
But Saw 1, two characters, Lee Wannell, who happens to, I think he's the writer as well, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. Yeah, he is. He wrote the movie along with James Wan. He plays a character called Adam, who wakes up in a bathtub in this weird sort of rundown public toilet. And then Dr. Lawrence Gordon wakes up in the opposite corner. They're both chained to pipes on opposite ends, and they have no idea how they got there. They woke up, and there's like a tape recorder with some clues from Jigsaw, who's the sort of the serial mastermind killer Riddler type guy who sets all this stuff up. And they're given a task, and Lawrence's task is to kill Adam before it hits 6 o'clock, and that's kind of the main gist of the plot. This movie on a simple idea level really appeals to me. You know I love bottle movies, Tim. You know I love bottle movies. And the thought of two characters waking up in a room, and the entire movie's them trying to figure out how to get out, why they're there, what led to this. That sounds perfect to me. Here's what trips up. I've got a couple of points that I'm going to here with this. First of all, both of these actors are absolutely dreadful.
Yes,
the
100%.
The acting is god awful. I have no idea how this happened.
You know what they really remind me of? Like I thought something seemed fishy about them when I was rewatching it today, and then maybe after like 10-15 minutes, it dawned on me, these guys just sound like they're NPCs in a video game. Like,
interesting.
Because there's just stuff like, he's trying to reach the tape recorder, and then you just hear from the other side of the room, try using your shirt. It's like if you're playing...
Do you know, it's funny you bring that up. See, later on in the movie when they turn the lights out, and Adam's saying stuff while the lights are out, because it's dark, they think they can get away with the dialogue not matching his mouth, but you can clearly see he is saying something completely different. It is... it was really pissing me off. The other big thing that breaks this movie... Oh, sorry, do you want to make fun of the acting some more? By all means, go ahead. Otherwise, hold you back.
The acting's bad. It was also, like, super exposition-y. Like, there's a lot of stuff, like, he's looking at the tape, and, there's a big close-up on the tape, and it says, play me, and the guy's like, it says play me. It's like, yeah, we got it. I feel like everything they did, they had to describe.
I think they kind of justify that in plot just because they have to say what it is to the person across the room, because he can't see that across this big bathroom.
It really irked me.
I get what's justifying it. I agree it's annoying, but I at least understand why they think the characters need to do that. I think both the acting from them is awful. Which is the weird thing about that as well, is that the movie's otherwise filled with pretty good Danny Glover's in this, Ken Leung's in this, Dana Meyer's in this.
The dude that plays Ben from Lost.
Yeah, Michael Emerson, who actually isn't that good in this, but I know he can be great. He is fantastic with the right direction. Which again makes it like James Wan. Had he just not learned how to direct actors yet? Is that why this is so weird and stilted?
Maybe.
And Shawnee Smith's okay. She's only got one scene in this really, but she's the...
Is she the wife?
No, she's the girl who lived.
Oh, okay.
From Becker. Girl from Becker.
Gotcha.
Man, I've mentioned Becker twice tonight. That's so weird. I've not seen that show in years, but that's the second actor tonight who was on it at some point, and I've brought it up. But anyway,
Becker on the brain.
Apparently, Ted Danson is just in there. Like, who can blame you? Ted Danson. He's dreamy. He's a dreamy man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a big problem, is the acting, typically. Especially from those two specifically. Like, if the rest of them were bad, it wouldn't really matter that much, but those two are bad. And it's just them carrying the movie in this one room with the direction. And the direction's annoying. There's a lot of erratic, quick cuts to things, and I hate when it starts going frantic. See when we see like Amanda's story, that's Shawnee Smith's character.
Yeah.
And she's in the headlock thing, and she starts moving her head, and it's like frantically spinning around and doing all these things. I hate it. I hate it with a passion.
I don't know if this movie started that trend, but I hate anytime like that's in a horror movie. It drives me bananas. I just think it like looks so dumb. It feels like a shitty, like, rock music video, which just made me sound like really old.
Well, that's the thing. I remember at the time people calling it in reviews MTV editing.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
And it's hard to disagree with that. And the other thing I hate about it is I hate how it looks just from a colour palette. It's got this weird bluey, greeny tint thing going on the entire time. It makes it feel really cheap in a way that it shouldn't. And that bugs me. And that was a trend. I don't know if that started the trend, but that was a big trend for horror movies in the 2000s. Dead Sentence or Dead Silence, whatever it was called, that had it as well. I remember watching that and going, why is this so blue? It's so annoying. It looks tacky. So that bugged me. Right, the other big reason why I think this movie fails, from what I like about the idea, like the two guys wake up in a room and they're trying to figure things out. It's kind of like an escape room. You know what an escape room is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a movie version of that, and that sounds like great to me. Yeah, do that.
Yeah.
It fails to me because over half the movie, maybe even more than that, is flashbacks explaining what's going on. If you're going to give me a movie where characters wake up in a room and try and figure things out, I want at least 80% of that to be in that room with those people and be inventive, make it interesting. Like Cube. Like Cube is a bunch of characters who wake up in a very plain room, and there's other rooms, but they're all the same, and they have to try and figure out why they're there and how to get out. And it's just that. There's none of this outside bullshit. All of this, this flashback to the detective Danny Glover looking for the Jigsaw killer, and flashback to these other cases. And then I swear, if I saw that shot of Dr. Lawrence Gordon walking into the car park one more time, I was going to flip a table.
Oh my god.
Because we saw it like 5 times. It was insane. Because they kept repeating certain flashbacks from different angles. Because Adam was there, he was spying on him, he's a photographer, and he's Dr. Gordon was almost cheating on his wife, but then he didn't cheat on his wife, so he's actually sympathetic. And I'm like, oh my god.
You know what I think it suffers from is that I feel like it's trying to be, like it's trying too hard to be smart. Like it's trying too hard to be like, oh, see how this all connects, and oh, hey, I bet you didn't think this, and oh, this really is turning out to be this, and it's like, yeah, it would have been a lot more entertaining if maybe we didn't have all this convoluted, backstory, and yeah, like you said, instead, if it was just literally just these two guys trapped in a room with all these different puzzles and messed up stuff that they have to do, that could be really compelling. But
it also, so all the things to discover in the room though don't feel very organic. It feels very forced in a weird way, and I don't like, some of it doesn't even make sense. Like at one point, like they turn out the light and they see glow in the dark paint with an X that says, "Oh, the X marks the spot." And he smashes in the tiles, and there's something like behind the tiles. It ends up being like a box with a phone in it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did they put that in there with and have the tiles? It's the same rundown, shitty looking tiles that the rest of the wall has. How did they get that in there without putting new tiles on afterwards? Like,
it's one of those things where it's like, did Jigsaw really go through like this much trouble?
It feels too much for one man to possibly set up, and that's just in this movie. Wait until you find out what he had planned, like past his death for like another 4 movies.
God. And that I really hate his stupid. I don't know what you'd say. I guess his agenda or whatever. Basically, he's trying to do. Yeah. Because he's a dude that's dying, and he feels like other people don't appreciate life, so. But it's like, this is your way of getting people to appreciate life by...
Here's my problem with that, right? You say, okay, so everyone he's targeting is somewhat guilty and needs like a comeuppance of some sort. There were some characters that never actually explained what their comeuppance was for. Like Ben from Lost, Michael Emerson's character, Zep. Like, he's just this janitor at the hospital. I don't think they ever actually say why he's been forced to do all this for him. Like, he's poisoned
No.
him. He's forcing him to do all this stuff to, and he's the red herring. And we think it's made it look like he's the killer, even though it's quite clear because the killer has a completely different voice. Which, that's one thing I do like it at the movie. Actually, if I'm going to give it a positive, I think Tobin Bell is a really good horror voice.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mr. Gordon, we're going to play a game. Tonight we'll find out if we live or who dies.
That's
The
like a
games
really
begin.
good. That's a really good impression.
Do you want me to do the whole all the reviews? Like, next we'll talk about the music in the movie Saw. Tim,
Yeah.
do you want to play a game?
Not particularly.
I'll stop that. That's going to kill my voice. But continue.
But no, like another problem with that is, all right, so yeah, everyone is somewhat guilty, but then like part of the punishment is that he's gonna kill, Lawrence's wife and kids, like
Who are innocent, who are completely
Yeah.
innocent.
Yeah, it's like what did they do? Why are they in this?
I get you, Tim. I absolutely get you. And here's the other thing, right? So Danny Glover's character, the Detective Tapp, like I care what his name is really, he's Danny Glover. He's convinced. They have Dr. Lawrence Gordon as a suspect, and that's why Dr. Lawrence Gordon at one point says, "Oh, I know who's doing this." Which, by the way, he takes too long to figure that, to have that thought. Like that was another thing, is they seem to like have forgotten things until they conveniently remember them when the movie wants them to remember. Like, suddenly Adam remembers, oh, I was taking photos of you, and he just remembers that before he went back to his house. Lawrence Gordon, oh yeah, I was under investigation for this guy. What really struck me is that the more flashbacks we saw of Lawrence Gordon and like all the stuff leading up to this, where he got obscene phone calls, he thought he was being watched in a car park and in the parking lot, and he thought all these things were happening. I was like, how are you not expecting something to happen at this point? Like there were so many weird things adding up in your life on the run up to this moment. How are you even surprised you woke up kidnapped at this point? But yeah, so Danny Glover's character has him as a suspect at one point, and he has an alibi. He was with someone else, and it all kind of sorts out, and that's fine. But for some reason, later on in the movie, we see Danny Glover and Ken Lung's character, his partner, track down the building where he's hiding, and they go in, and there's a guy there who's dying, and they get Jigsaw in their sights, and he's got his hood up so you can't see him, but we can't see him as an audience because the camera's constantly behind his head. But you get the feeling that at the very least Danny Glover sees enough of him to know it's definitely not Lawrence Gordon. He doesn't have the same build, he doesn't have the same voice, like even if you're just seeing his chin, it's a completely different chin, right? It's completely different. He doesn't look anything like him. And yet for some reason after this happens and Ken Lung's character dies because there's a shotgun trap, which to be fair, the movie at that point does foreshadow the ending, because you see Jigsaw stand up kind of because he pretends to be dead for a second when he gets in the trap, and then he gets back up, and it's very reminiscent of the ending when he gets up. But for some reason Danny Glover is convinced that Lawrence Gordon is involved in the Jigsaw killings for some reason, to the point where he's the one who hired Adam. He's the one he's staking out Gordon's house, and he's watching all this stuff, and he ends up tracking them down, and he ends up following Zepp, Michael Emerson's character, to the bathroom location, and then dies in a kind of an anticlimactic scene.
Yeah, and now I forget if there was a reason for this, but
Probably not, but go on.
when that scene where they're questioning Lawrence, and then they have the girl that survived that mouth trap. I forget what the girl's name was. It Amanda?
Yes, Amanda, yeah.
Right. So wait, why did they bring Lawrence in to hear her story?
They didn't bring him in for that. They brought him to question him. It was a continuation of the same scene where he was being questioned at the police station. And then they had her there as well, and they said, "Oh, I'll let you hear this," because they wanted to see his reaction to see if he looked guilty. I think was the thinking.
Okay, I don't know. It just seemed like weird, like police procedure.
No. To be fair, they didn't bring him in for that. He was already there, and they decided to like let him hear it. No, so how do I defend it? But I'll stick up to it. Dinah Meyer's in it, and she's just kind of like another cop who doesn't have a whole lot to do in this movie. I think she's in one of the sequels actually. She continues on I could be wrong. Let me
Yeah.
have a quick peek to the mid 2000s. Yeah, she's in Saw 2. Oh, she's in Saw 3 as well. Jeez, Saw 4. My God, she was a mainstay of the series.
There's like a lot of weird crap that seems unimportant in this movie that comes up in later ones.
Yes, well, this is the thing. They kept trying to retcon in things so that everything felt super connected, and like we'll talk about that more when we get to the sequels. We can actually talk about the details. I can't remember any of them. It's been so long.
No.
Oh dear. Yeah, I mean, do we want to talk about the various traps we see from the other like Jigsaw kills, if you want to call them that?
Sure.
Because as they say, technically he's not a murderer because he makes the victims kill themselves. That's still murder.
Yeah.
That's still murder. Like, if I went into a room and held a gun to someone's head and made them murder someone else at gunpoint, I'm the one who's guilty of murder.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Or any other crime that I make them do whilst holding them at gunpoint. So, stupid. So yeah, we had the head trap thing, and she had to like dig a key out of her cousin or whatever the family member was.
Is still alive.
Who was still alive. She didn't know he was still alive though, and she just gets out in time. We had the guy who had like the safe combination was on the walls, but he was like he had a candle and he was covered in flammable liquid, and he eventually just burns alive. So that was fun. Then there was the fat guy in the barbed wire. Like, yeah, they're okay. Like, don't get me wrong. The idea, like, again, the general idea of this killer who sets up all these traps and games sounds kind of fun, but the actual way the movie's made and the way it's portrayed and the way it thinks it's really smart actually kind of ruins the whole thing.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you don't really see, much of these traps. Like, I guess they're interesting ideas, but then when they show them, it is like that MTV style. Like, everything is really fast and shaky, and it's just annoying the way it's portrayed.
Yeah, it's very erratic. So it brings us back, I guess, to the two of them in the bathroom, and they're doing their things, and they're planning things, and obviously they get the saws early on, and he realizes that can't cut through the steel, the chains, but it can cut through the leg. And eventually Gordon gets to the point where he thinks his family's in danger, he's hearing them struggle on the phone, that he goes for his leg. And to be fair, the start of the cutting, when you see it sort of cutting through the skin to begin with, that's a pretty good shot. It's fine. And then that's kind of it. And I think the movie wants you to feel like they've bonded over this, like by the time we get to the end of the movie, because he crawls over to Gordon and he shot Zepp and they think he's the killer until Gordon leaves. But Gordon crawls out to get help because he's cut himself out at this point. And so the end of the movie, Adam goes into Zebb's pocket and there's a tape recorder, and it's like, plot twist, it's he's also one of the pawns, and it's it's not actually him. Jigsaw is Jigsaw. And then and I'll give them credit. I think the final moment, the final shot of Jigsaw rising up into frame from behind Adam is actually a pretty good moment. Yeah. I think that's a pretty cool little twist that he was in the room the entire time. And then I do like the idea of him saying game over and shutting the door. And if I'm going to compliment a bit of filmmaking here, I like the small touch that we hear him screaming still as the credits play for a little bit.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a nice touch. But it's a short list of positives, honestly, at this point for me, because I was watching this. I don't like how it's filmed. I don't like how it looks or how it's shot. I hate the acting from the main two guys. And I think it devalues its own premise by constantly cutting to flashbacks and all this exposition of how we got here. It's super concerned with explaining everything, when I think having some mystery would actually help it.
Yeah, and I think my problem with the ending is, like, the whole Jigsaw reveal. I would have appreciated it more, except for up to this point, I was so annoyed by the movie because it really felt like it was up its own ass, and it was trying so hard to be smart that it just felt like another smug thing to be like, oh, look how smart we are. Bet you didn't see that coming. Like, he was here the whole time.
Yeah, I like the shot. I like the way it's more or less handled. I actually kind of like the music that's playing. I like the mystery unraveling music that plays at the end. What doesn't help it though is the fact that, honestly, we didn't really get to see Jigsaw when he was lying, because it cuts to a shot of him in the hospital bed, And it's like, oh, he's dying of cancer and all that. And I feel like if we'd actually had a scene with him earlier when he's in hospital bed with maybe Gordon talking to him and like actually having a moment where because I'm like, I don't remember. I vaguely remember a scene in the hospital room, but I don't really remember seeing him there.
So was this why he, kidnapped Gordon? Because I think he has a line at some point where he says, like, you're a doctor who's always giving people bad news. Like, did he just kidnap him because he was his doctor and he was upset that he was the one that told him, he only has so long to live?
Maybe that's part of it, but I think the main thing is that he thought he was cheating on his wife. He doesn't appreciate life so much. It was just the same thing.
I don't know, like, but it seems like maybe he's appreciating life a lot. He's like, I wanted to like have as like be with as many people as possible.
Well, no, because he backs down from that, and we see at home that it seems like he's ignoring his daughter, but then at the last second he goes, no, I'll come and tuck you in and tell you a story. Like,
Yeah,
it plays,
he's actually a pretty good guy.
for the most part. I mean, he straddles the line, and I think the movie wants you to think, oh, is he a bad guy, is he a good guy, and it kind of plays it back and forth. And then ultimately, he doesn't kill Adam when he has the chance. He tries to go for help. The movie tries to make you like him, ultimately. What I think is really funny about how convoluted this all is, though, is the idea that, so, the detective, played by Danny Glover, pays Adam to follow Gordon to see what he's up to, thinking he might be Jigsaw. Jigsaw is monitoring both, or he's monitoring Gordon because that's one of my next victims, and then he notices Adam and goes, oh, him too, since he's a little voyeur perv guy. And then he like, I like the thought process where he notices Adam and then goes, yeah, you too, you're also a victim.
Yeah, that was pretty dumb.
I don't know. It's just, it is super dated. I think the way it's shot, it feels so mid 2000s in the worst way possible. It's just ugly. I hate it.
And yeah, and it, I it didn't really start like the whole torture porn thing. And to be fair, I think this one is a lot milder than the sequels become.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's a type of horror genre that I just don't really like that much.
No, I think that's fair. And I guess we're wrapping up. I don't have much more to say on the first Saw at this point. I don't hate it. It's not as bad as the sequels, obviously. It has some genuinely good ideas. It's not aged well, though. I certainly liked it more when I saw it when I was like 15, because it seemed okay. It seemed kind of cool. Blah 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 blah. But as time has went on, it has not helped it. It's not been kind to it at all. Both in terms of the story, the acting, but also just the way it's shot is super dated now. It feels like a relic of a time that we kind of, as movie-going audiences, we kind of want to forget movies that look like this.
Yeah.
At least I do.
And I mean, like we mentioned earlier too, there's a lot of stuff in here that I really don't like, and it's hard to say if this movie started it or, if there are some of these trends that were kind of, already being played up in other like movies of the time. But there's just,
if this didn't start the trends, I think this popularized a lot of them for a while. And I think that's why there was a period of really crappy horror movies in the mid 2000s. Not that there wasn't good ones, because there definitely was as well, but certainly there was like a subsect of them that felt like they were all inspired by Saw and Saw 2 and Saw 3 and Saw 4.
Yeah.
So on. So I guess we're done. I guess we're done with Saw. I guess we're in rating territory.
I would actually probably have liked it more if he was an actual little puppet.
Also, I feel like with a name like Jigsaw, there was, other than the fact that he carved out a little jigsaw piece of like skin in his victims, I really wish the name played into the plot more. Like, why Jigsaw? What is he doing with, I don't know. But anyway, Tim, what would you give Saw out of 10?
I'll give it a 5.5.
I think that's pretty fair.
Like because I really don't like it, but like we said, there was some interesting ideas. it's probably the best out of the series. I guess we'll see as we go through them, but yeah, like I'll give it like a little extra point here or there just for being a little interesting. And I guess at the time it was kind of a new thing.
You never know. Maybe we'll find out that some of the sequels have actually aged better and
Maybe.
have more fun going for them. I'm going to go straight 5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
Half. For every idea I like, it kind of does something really bad with it, and for every actor I like, there's actor I don't like, and is really bad. And it's worse when the two leads, the two people in the room that need to carry the movie, are terrible, because they really are. Every line of dialogue that comes out of their mouth sounds fake and forced. It's so weird.
I'll tell you what though, it does. I do feel like James Wan is really impressive though. That
He got so much better.
Yeah, like I can't really think of that many directors. Like usually if you like a director, even if they have earlier stuff that's not as good, you still appreciate it on some level. And I can't really think of other people that it's like, oh, I straight up hated, their first couple of movies and absolutely love, their last 4 movies or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this and Dead Silence, they're terrible. This isn't terrible, this is really mediocre. Dead Silence is terrible. And then all of a sudden, I mean, some people would disagree with us on this, but I love Insidious.
Oh yeah, me too.
And then Conjuring, and then the sequels to those two.
And I don't think I'd...
Insidious 2, not as good as first one. Conjuring 2, I think, is better than Conjuring 1, but various degrees of quality, good stuff, and I'm looking forward to what he does next. I'm looking forward to his next stuff. He's a director now who I care about, and I look for his next film. And this is...
I honestly, if I watched, like this back to back with Insidious or Conjuring, like I probably wouldn't be able to tell it was the same guy.
No, I wouldn't either. Like he has such a good style and a good sense of pacing in his newer films. It's surreal how much better he got. But whatever it is, I'm glad he got it out of his system.
Yeah.
Done, fine. Right, let's move on with our lives. So that's Saw. That's Saw. So let us know what you think of Saw and the Saw franchise in the comments below. Look forward to Saw 2 in the very near future. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fudge for channel updates. Get us on patreon.com/mailfuzztv if you want to see some bonuses you can get and all that kind of thing. Helps us up. Technically, because we recorded this a little bit in advance, so the voting for the month of July for the August bonus will probably be up when you're watching this, but we'll announce in the next video what they are, but it'll already be up, so you can go to patreon.com and check. If you're in the $5 tier, you get to vote on the bonus movie for next month. But that is us. So once again, thank you very much for watching. Keep watching scary movies. We'll see you next time.